Before we begin, I want to take the time to address feedback I've received on the podcast so far. I've been told that at the end of episode 2, I seemed whiny and desperate when I pleaded listeners to follow, and after listening to it over again, and I honestly don't know how I didn't see it as such whenever I first recorded it, and I apologize. The other comment was that I swear too much, and while I can understand that to an extent, it might be excessive to some. It's personally just how I talk when I get into topics like this or when I get riled up in general, but I can definitely try to tone it down a bit, just not completely. As any content creator should, I will consider every single piece of constructive criticism that I get, so thank you for responding. All that I ask is the next time, please use the blog at shoonpodcast.com to send me feedback. After every episode airs, there will be a blog post alongside it on the blog page of the website for any viewer comments. Sign up for the blog, leave your thoughts, and I will respond as quickly as possible. That way, all the feedback is a lot easier for me to consolidate and get back to in a timely manner. Welcome to episode 3 of the Shoon Podcast, a weekly video game podcast discussing any news in the industry that catches my attention. Subscribe to the show on your podcast service of choice and head over to shoonpodcast.com to sign up for the blog that follows each upload to engage in the conversation, as well as to support me through my Patreon if you would like to help me make this become a full-time endeavor. With that being said, let's talk about video games. This week in new releases brought to you by Metacritic.com, we have 5 new titles for the week of January 28th, 2019. Starting off, we have, oh wow, I probably should have saved it for the last, Kingdom Hearts 3 on January 29th. This is coming out for the PS4 and the Xbox One. I'm not going to lie, I've never gotten into a title in the series other than 20 or 30 minutes into the first game. And I understand that might rile some people up, but I do see how big this looks. I understand the importance of this game, and honestly, I've been following development for this game for quite a while. I know it's been in development for a long time, and I haven't stuck with it from beginning to end, but I have seen the past few years of development, and what I've seen so far, it looks really good. The combat looks really cool. I love the art style, and honestly, obviously, Disney having characters mixed in with Square Enix and blah blah blah. It's obviously a cash grab. Obviously people want that. So I'm really happy for anybody that's really interested in that game. And hopefully it sells well because it's already got a pretty good review score across the board. We've got 2 more games releasing the exact same day. One exclusive to PC is a MOBA based in the PlanetSide universe called PlanetSide Arena. It's very interesting. I've always enjoyed PlanetSide 2 on PC whenever my internet actually let me play. And I tried a little bit on PlayStation 4. That didn't really go well. But the amount of time that I did get to play with it was honestly a lot of fun. So I'm very curious to see what they do with this in a MOBA space. And then we have Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy on Nintendo Switch exclusively. I have no idea what this is, but I mean, hey, if you're looking forward to Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, pick it up. It's coming out January 29th. Then, on February 1st, we have 2 games, one of which, oh my god, I am just like, so hyped. I'm so hyped for this. First game, we'll get the smaller one out of the way. For anybody that's interested in visual novels on PS4 and Nintendo Switch on February 1st, you're going to get Song of Memories and Wargroove. Okay, Wargroove is coming out on February 1st on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PC, and PS4. The PS4 release date is still unknown for some reason, but the other 3 platforms will be receiving the game on February 1st. This is such an amazing time, seemingly, to be a Tactics fan. We have had such a long drought of Advanced Wars from Nintendo. All we've been getting is Fire Emblem, which is perfectly fine. I'm just not a huge fan of the series. I do respect Fire Emblem gameplay-wise, and even story-wise, because some of the games are actually pretty great. I've just never really been into the way that the combat flows in the game, the systems itself. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fun distraction otherwise, but I really like Advanced Wars' take on getting your troops set up, running through factories, building units, taking over cities, taking over airports with the planes and ships and all these different traversals of movement, all the CO powers, the upgrades that were introduced in Days of Ruin, which how long has it been since that game was released? Let me see. Advanced Wars Days of Ruin. That game is so old. I remember playing that all the time whenever I had my DS, using local play with my brothers. And the map editor, wow. Just the map editor in itself could have been a game by itself. I would have paid for that. Making maps, adding in all these little tiles and water, and you could do so much with it. And then just put it on a map, drop a couple players in there, and you could just battle on it. And it was great. And apparently, actually, wait, let me see. When did this come out? 2008. It has been 10, not even 10. It's been 11 years since we've had an Advance Wars game. Wargroove is scratching that itch, though, is what I'm saying. Wargroove combines the gameplay, it seems, from Advance Wars and throws it into a medieval style a la Fire Emblem. So it's kind of a meshing of both at the same time, and it looks amazing. I mean, you can literally play, like, one of the COs you can play as is a dog with a helmet on. Like, come on, God, come on. You know, this game is going to be amazing. Chucklefish has published so many good games this year and last year, and their upcoming roster of games looks just as good, including this game, obviously. But I want this game. I want this game so bad. This is a first day purchase for me, period. So it's been a little bit of a slow week. Kind of a slow-ish week. Definitely not as much happened as whenever I aired episode 2. Obviously, we had this issue where I did not upload episode 3 on time, and I apologize for that. I had a very important person in my life come to visit that weekend. And the weekend is the only time in the entire week that I have to record and get everything ready. So that entire week was basically wasted. On the podcast, at least. Otherwise, I had a great weekend. But now that we're back into the podcast, we've been gone for a week. I don't want to go into news that's 2 weeks old. So as of the current week, it has been a little slow. But there are 2 things that I would like to talk about. One of them is just cool. And the other one I feel like is probably going to take up most of this because it's something that I really care about. So the first thing we have is that according to the NPD Group, which they track retail sales of video game hardware and software, it says that in 2018, overall, consumers spent $43.4 billion last year on video games. Like I said, that's not just the video games, that is hardware and software, so the games and the consoles or any other accessories that came with either. But apparently that's an 18% increase over 2017, with all these people saying that, like, there's a video game crash imminent. Blah, 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 blah. And I understand that, okay, that's always possible, especially with the Mad Box coming in back in the 80s, whenever everybody was just throwing their shit into the, like, right before 83 happened, the crash. There was so much competition that the market was getting oversaturated. Nobody wanted to buy the games because of the oversaturation, causing the games to be lowered in quality, because developers were trying to push them out so fast that they barely even made playable games. And because of that, the market crashed. Nobody wanted to buy them. And like I said, last episode, Nintendo said that yada yada. Video games have never been this healthy before. Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the biggest games in the last 10 years. While I'm not a super fan of the game, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack to that. But what it does do right, a game has never done that good in so long. The attention to detail, and I understand this is what people cite as one of the biggest things about this game, but it really is. The attention to detail in this game is absolutely incredible. There has never been a game that I can honestly see the work that all of these developers slaved over, apparently, running through, making all these animations, making just the graphics, the population, the AI. Everything looks like a real living, breathing ecosystem. And I've almost never felt that in a game completely. There's always something that kind of breaks the immersion. And there are still, in this game, a couple things that go against realism whenever some things don't, and it's a little confusing and convoluted. But whenever it does work 99.9% of the time, I almost think I'm not even in a video game. That's what video games really need to strive for, especially a game like that, an open world exploration focused game. Incredible game. I would buy it 3 times if I wasn't broke. We also got Spider-Man this year. I still have not played this game, and I feel like an adult for not getting it, but oh my God, the reviews for this game, the amount of positive energy coming from the community just about how how genuinely good this game is. We haven't had a good Spider-Man game in I don't even know how long. Beanox did a pretty good job of maintaining the franchise for as long as it did, but obviously over time they kind of ran the shit into the ground. Taking Insomniac of all companies, like the creators of Ratchet and Clank, it was basically destined for success. Insomniac has almost never made a bad game, in my opinion. They're really good creating their worlds and developing characters. While I've heard that the story in the game is a little passé, everything about the game otherwise people are really excited about, and that's great. So then we've got Monster Hunter World. My boy. Monster Hunter World, wow. Just wow. I've been playing Monster Hunter since Freedom Unite, way back in the PSP days. I started in 3, then went back in time, and then I got hopped on the 3DS train with 4U in Generations, and now I'm right back on the Switch with Generations Ultimate, and I had my time with World. I didn't really get to play a whole lot of it because I try to focus on gameplay with friends, and with my internet, it just doesn't work that well. And back in the 3DS days, I could just go to school or go to anybody else's house and we could connect and play. But on the Xbox or the PS4, just in my current situation, it's not really feasible. But when I did play, wow. I mean, this is the definitive version of Monster Hunter. And I understand that comment is extremely volatile. I understand this community very well. I understand the veteran side of the community, and I understand the newbie side of the community, most of which began with Monster Hunter World. But as far as population density is concerned, as far as getting people into the series goes, and that's what I feel is the biggest thing, because this game, or this franchise in general, does not get the love that it deserves. It never has, in my opinion. It doesn't matter how much they sell. It never rivals any of the big boys. And this is the first time that it did. Monster Hunter World sold more than any other game, not only in Monster Hunter history, but in Capcom's entire gaming history. That's counting Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, Street Fighter, any other game they've ever released. Monster Hunter World sold more copies by itself than any of the other games released in their entire repertoire. That's saying something, especially considering that Monster Hunter is one of the lowest selling franchises that Capcom has. And now, because of World, people are exploding. People are expanding into the older games. And whenever I get onto Generations Ultimate, I go online and I'm looking around. There's always people. There's always people that say that they came from World. I've even gone back into Generations on the 3DS and 4U on the 3DS, and I've still met people that went all the way back then, had a 3DS, and bought the older game just because. So many other games release. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This article right here that was posted 11 days after it released, states that it sold well over 3 million units just in the US. Just in the United States since it launched. 11 days. That makes it, to date, the fastest selling Switch game, period. And also, the fast selling Smash Bros. Game in the entire franchise. Every single thing that you possibly could have asked for in a Smash game, minus a very small smidgen of some of the competitive aspects of Melee, we got it in Smash Ultimate. We got all these crazy characters. We got this ridiculous set list of maps. We got a really, really cool replacement to Adventure Mode that's almost too deep with all of the other subsystems intertwined with it. Obviously, you don't have to focus on those, but the amount of content that was put into this game is absolutely fucking insane. Minus the online, it's a little shit. But minus that, we've had a really fucking good year for video games, is all I'm trying to say. We've had so many good games released in 2018. No wonder so many people are buying these damn things. No wonder so many people are starting to take this shit seriously. It's no wonder that we're having an 18% increase over 2017. We had so many good games released last year. It's honestly mind-boggling. Cynics talking about the end of the video game era as we see it they're just wrong. They're just plain flat out wrong, and this proves it. Movies, music, art, other forms of media in general, they're dead in the water in comparison. And that's insane. It's just the fact that we're in a day and age where video games are outselling movies. That's crazy. Interactive experiences are next gen. I personally feel like there's going to be a time where technology is going to improve so much, especially in the VR space and the graphic space, that we're not going to see a difference between real life and video games. Basically Ready Player One, hopefully minus the economical and environmental issues caused in the world in that setting. But there's eventually going to be a time where the world as we know it can be perfectly mirrored in a video game without any possible hint of it being a video game. You put on your VR headset, you're in the real world, but you can edit, manipulate, and otherwise form it to be whatever you want. And honestly, as curated as some of the developers can make stuff like this, you could easily make a video game that surpasses the quality and storytelling, which has already happened, of a movie. Not only that, but you're literally in it. You could play as the main character in your own movie created by a developer. There almost seemingly isn't a need for movies that far into the future. I personally don't feel like movies are going to be as successful as video games in the long run, because the amount of user-generated content, the amount of developer-created content that can just constantly be created over time, you could make your own version of whatever movie comes out. You could continually release content on a basis like that to the point where there wouldn't be any difference. Anyways, awesome, crazy awesome. We're $43.4 billion in 1 year. That's absolutely insane. And I hope that shit skyrockets another 20% next year. Big ups to video games. Now, for the main thing I wanted to talk about, now this is seemingly something that you could pass over and just forget about. But a couple days ago, Nintendo released a video on their YouTube channel stating that Metroid Prime 4 was ceasing development as it currently stands, and is being completely restarted from the beginning with Retro Studios, the company that made the first 3 Metroid Prime games. This is huge. This is enormous. The initial trailer that we got, and that's not even a trailer, it's just a teaser of the possible logo, just to get people hyped. That was 2 years ago. So they obviously were pretty heavily in development of this game. I can't even imagine how many assets they're going to lose. And I would assume the development team's probably extremely upset. But Nintendo said themselves that it didn't reach their expectations at that point. The fact that Nintendo decided that they're going to release a video on their own public YouTube channel and tell the fans exactly what was going on, that never happens in video games. That never happens. That much transparency, that like it gets me like a little emotional, honestly. Like, it honestly tugs at my heartstrings a little bit. It's really depressing to see gaming in the business industry go where it has been all this time, for years and years and years. All we keep getting is companies like Activision and EA that just blatantly don't give a fuck about anybody that they're selling their games to, and they will do anything they can to just pinch the tiniest of money off of you. It doesn't matter how hard or how low they have to sink to get that money. They'll fucking do it. They'll strip you for every single penny you have in the name of making money. And that's the only thing that most of these companies operate under. And it's depressing. It's really sad that businesses just go this way. And this isn't just a problem in the video game industry, but as far as something that I'm extremely close to, and I've been seeing this in everybody that is my age, in their early 20s, seeing the video game industry grow with them. It's slowly decaying and turning into some kind of state of anarchy. Now, like I just said before, the sales are through the roof, and that's on the complete flip side of what I feel otherwise. Sales, the reason shit is selling so crazily, yes, we have great games. We have amazing games still coming out. 2018, like I said, one of the best years in recent memory for video games. But on top of that, it's also one of the worst for different reasons, but all having to do with money. Greedy business practices, EA with Battlefront 2's release and Battlefield 5's utterly catastrophic release, calling their players and the entire community ignorant and uneducated because they criticize something that they know for a fact should not be in the game that they're advertising as a recreation of World War II. The amount of companies that just don't care about who they're selling their game to because they want to either fill some stupid, ridiculous political agenda that has nothing to do with the development of the game. They're just doing it to get some brownie points on either political side, whatever they're trying to favor, so they can get people that don't even play those damn games to support them. I bet you $100, half the people that they're trying to pander to don't even fucking play video games. Whenever you're trying to historically represent something that happened in the past, and then you blatantly shit all over the history that we have had previously just to make sure that other people that weren't in that group at the time are happy, that ruins the entire thing. You can't just rewrite history. You can't do that to the people that had to go through what they had to go through back then. You're basically just saying that whatever they did doesn't matter because anybody else could have done the same thing. And you don't know that. You have to respect the people that fought and gave their life respectfully. Like you have to, if you're going to recreate something with the intention of making it representative of what actually happened and then completely change it, you're just, it's so disrespectful. I can't even fathom a sentence to explain how that makes me feel. Anyways, back on topic. Like Metroid has always been the black sheep of Nintendo's history. Whenever they release it, it sells pretty good, but at the same time, they could just release a Zelda game, they could release a Mario game, and that shit will sell 3 times as much. They struck gold whenever they made the original Metroid Prime on the GameCube, and no other game in the series has ever sold better. After they did that, they realized how well the series could sell, so they made 2 more sequels, both of which, the second one, in my personal opinion, being better than the first one, and the third game being not as good, but as far as Metroid games are considered, easily one of the best ones. The trilogy was great. Then, with their egos a little too inflated, they decided to completely change everything. They tried going back to a 2D style, but adding 3D at the same time, upgrading the combat mechanics to make it more visually appealing, and you end up with Metroid Other M, which had a god-awful story, had some of the worst voice acting in a Nintendo game I've ever heard, and giving Samus one of the most whiny-ass, just constantly complaining, crying baby about everything that she was going through. Up until that point, she's a badass bounty hunter that can give 2 fucks about really anything other than the mission and do what's right and following her orders, whether or not they were hers or somebody else's. The game was fucking terrible. It was a disaster. There are some people that try to say that, some aspects of the game were not that bad, but whenever you have to say that about a game, it's obvious that it didn't do good. It's obvious that it sucked. It just sucked. That game sucked. And it sucked so bad that the sales were so bad that the franchise was basically put on hiatus until, see, and this is the problem, until the 25th anniversary. The 25th anniversary of the series. You've got to be kidding me. The 25th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, we got Skyward Sword. Now, I understand that game has differing opinions, but as a tribute to the series, that game was great. If you take out the motion control problems, which I personally never had, I don't understand why people are constantly complaining, because that's the biggest complaint I seem to have, outside of maybe some of the pacing in the game, because it was a little sporadic and where you could and couldn't go, with it being an open world, but not really an open world. That I can understand, but I never had one single problem with any of the motion controls. If you take out the biggest complaint there, that was a great tribute. Not only that, but every copy of the game included a separate CD with orchestrated music from the Zelda Orchestra spanning all of the games in the series. It was a great package, a great way to send off the series for its 25th anniversary. And Metroid, oh my god. We got Metroid Prime, take that very lightly, Metroid Prime Federation Force. A side story to the Metroid Prime series, where you don't even play as Samus, you play as Federation soldiers. God. The slow, monotonous point A to point B. It was so boring. It was one of the most boring multiplayer, and it even had multiplayer. That was the big thing, is that you could play with 4 people going about the game in whatever way you wanted to within the constraints of the mission. The controls were clunky, the combat was terrible, the movement was literally slower than a slug. I have no idea how this got out of testing, especially for the 25th anniversary of the series. You were supposed to bring your A game with this series on the 25th anniversary, even if it's fucking Bubsy. I mean, the anniversaries not even mean anything to Nintendo at this point. Back then, they had some issues with the Wii U doing fucking terrible, and honestly, some of the games they released during that time, especially that fucking Animal Crossing Mario Party clone that you had to buy amiibos to even play, those were some dark times for Nintendo. This is the first time in... I'm trying to think of how long it's been since we got Metroid Prime 3, aka the last good Metroid game. It has more than likely been over 10 years since we've had a good Metroid game. That's why whenever in Nintendo Direct 2017, their summer direct for E3, I'm pretty sure that's whenever it was shown, but all they did was show a roaming background in space with clouds in a nebula that formed Samus's logo, and then boom, Metroid Prime 4, and the entire world exploded in happiness. Everyone was screaming at the top of their lungs, yes, 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 this is finally happening, because the name itself has such a heavy weight of quality that whenever you see the name itself, it means that, okay, yes, we are finally getting another chance at a return to form for the series. That's why so many people were pissed off at Federation Force, because you slap the Prime name on the game, that automatically means that it's got to be top tier. It has to be. And they slapped it on there because of that. So whenever people got the game and realized how fucking terrible it was, that's just an even bigger slap in the face, because you're ruining the name. This better not happen again. And it's good to see that Nintendo cares this much about it. It's obvious to see that this matters to them, because that they pulled this. A game being in development that long, for someone to just pull the game completely, that happens quite a bit. But for Nintendo themselves to publicly announce on their YouTube channel that they are doing that, to let their fans know that it's going to be a little bit longer, instead of just leaving them in the dark for years. Because keep in mind, we have not received any information about the game other than that trailer 2 years ago. We've not seen any hints at a release date, what it's going to look like, where it's going to take place, anything about the story, the characters, the engine that's running on it, nothing. This is absolutely amazing. This is a step forward for the gaming industry that everybody needs to look at and realize that companies that go into this dark corner of seclusion, that don't, even if they're the most heartwarming and honest developers in the world, if you don't talk to your community about what you're doing and how everything is progressing, and then you pull some shit like that, you get no respect. You get absolutely no respect. Blizzard, one of the most prolific gaming companies in the entire world, is just constantly falling prey to people berating it because of the most recent things that they have been doing in partnership with Activision. Most notably, Diablo Immortal, the mobile game that nobody, absolutely fucking nobody asks for, announced at BlizzCon, the biggest convention in the world specifically made for Blizzard Entertainment, all the people that are going there are fans of their mainline franchises, and there were hints at Diablo 4, a true sequel to the series, that of which hasn't had anything in quite a while. And then instead of releasing even a hint at anything for Diablo 4, they end it with, hey, we're going to make a mobile game. It's going to be great, right? Aren't you? It's cool. Like, don't you guys have phones? God, hearing them say that, I'm not a huge fan of Diablo. I'm sorry to anyone that is pissed off by that comment, but I've heard that the third one was kind of a mixed bag and that the second one is better than the first one, but I've never really liked it enough to get into the series more. What I did play wasn't that bad though, and I can understand just, from window shopping, from looking around at the community itself over time. I know how big this game is. I know how much a new entry means for the fan base, and the fact that you're going to tell them all this time later at the biggest event for this game that you're not going to get Diablo 4 anytime soon. We're not even going to give you an announcement at a possible release date for a new mainline Diablo game. We're also going to slap you in the face saying that, hey, we're just going to give you a cheap-ass, low-effort mobile game instead. That's been handed over to NetEase of all the possible companies they could have given, which make games just like that. They have at least 3 or 4 games that follow suit that look just like Diablo clones, except now they're actually making a Diablo game. And the gameplay itself doesn't look that much different from the Diablo clones that they've seen, not to mention as well that from what I can gather from the community, it is a dumbed down version of the game. And people that play Diablo don't play it to have a dumbed down version. And as far as I know, I think that's why Diablo 3 was maligned so much, because it took a lot more simplistic approach to the gameplay loop, and they're going to do that even further with this game. It's obvious they don't want that. Companies that constantly do things that are completely against what gamers want, only focusing on what investors want, like, you might as well just be a big putrid waste. Just a big pile of shit. Ever since they partnered with Activision, they've been going downhill. And this, I don't want to say it's the final nail in the coffin, because I don't want to see them go down, because they make really good games, but they have to get their heads out of their asses. They have to stop working with whoever is telling them that this is what we want, because it's obvious the fans don't want this. Nobody listens to the players anymore. And treading that back over to Nintendo, they're very hesitant to do what we want too. But they've just recently started getting a little bit more headway into doing what we want, because at the end of the day, we are their end result. If we don't buy what they don't make money. They're not a company. They're not successful. If they don't listen to us to an extent, especially to the point where we physically do not buy their games because we can't stand how much they're going against what we want, they're out of a business. So to an extent, they have to listen to us. They have to do what we want to do. And it's obvious that Nintendo is very scared about releasing a bad game, especially this day and age where 2 games in a row have suffered terrible sales because players themselves banded together and didn't buy a game that they didn't like because the publishers tried doing something purposely that they didn't want. Very, very good on the gaming community. Do not let any developer, do not let any publisher tell you what you want. If you want something in a video game, in large, if the community in large wants something in a video game done a certain way, and instead of that, they force something completely different on you. And I don't mean this in an example of, well, they don't actually know what they want, because every once in a while a game will release, let's say like Breath of the Wild, that completely changes everything that the series has ever been known for. But it's in a positive way because it still maintains the core aspects of the franchise itself. Whenever you do this, whenever you put shit down your consumers' throats as much as EA did with Battlefield 5, it's their fault. That's completely their fault. If you're going to treat your customers that way, you don't deserve to be in business. It's simple as that. Very, very good on Nintendo for doing the right thing, for doing what they personally feel out loud to the public, is a bad decision for talking to your community directly, telling them exactly what's going on instead of not being transparent and putting it in some kind of weekly editorial or sales figures just hidden away for people to uncover, eventually get it out to the public. Then there's an outrage. You did it in the best way you possibly could have, and developers and publishers need to pay attention to this. This is what we deserve to be treated like. We're consumers. We deserve to be treated with respect. And Nintendo respected its customers by doing this. Thank you, Nintendo. Thanks for stopping by. If you want to stay up to date with new uploads, follow the Shoon podcast on whatever platform you use and share this episode to any of your socials to show your support. If you want to support me on Patreon, follow the link at the bottom of the homepage on shoonpodcast.com and stop by the blog to give me any feedback on what I can do to better the show. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.